Hello, everybody. Mr. Wuorinen, Algebra 2. Class is canceled.
How's it? Hope everybody's good. You guys know I'm Mr. W. So there we go. I'm Mr. W. Let me introduce Ryan Vesler to you. Ryan.
Do you want to tell them how we just did that? I don't know. They're probably confused.
Okay.
So we switched clothing. I don't know if you knew. But that's why we were doing that.
Yeah, it was really subtle, wasn't it?
On the calendar invite, I said, I'm only going to agree to do this if he switches clothing with me. And he said he would. And then when I checked in, he like called me on it. I thought he was just messing around, but so here we are.
And we actually fit into each other's clothes.
We're basically the same person.
So let me introduce you to Ryan. Ryan Vesler is the founder and CEO of Homage, an apparel company based in Columbus that is known for its vintage-inspired sports and pop culture clothing. He grew up in Bexley and graduated from Academy in 2001. Ryan then attended Ohio University and majored in Spanish. A bowling and vintage aficionado, he has a passion for classic styles and the bowling lanes. Fun fact, Ryan started a bowling club here at Academy as a student that eventually evolved into what is now the varsity bowling team. That's actually where we're going to start. Ryan, can you tell that story? First, actually, why don't you talk about your junior speech as a leader?
Junior speech?
Yeah.
Or the bowling?
Well, what was your junior speech about?
Well, no. Let's see where you're going. So my junior speech was about working at the bowling alley. So I've always loved bowling. I don't know why, it's just fun. So I was bowling with some friends on a weekend, and the owner of the bowling alley said that he wanted to make bowling a varsity sport in Ohio. But he said the way to do that was to start it as a club, because you gain traction and people will start to participate. And so needing a faculty sponsor to sort of oversee us, babysit us, whatever, I asked Mr. Wuorinen, and he agreed to do it. And I do want to thank you, because I realized that was like trial by fire. You've never bowled before. You just threw yourself into it earnestly and kept the bowling tradition, started the bowling tradition in Academy. So thank you.
Little known fact, first bowling coach. The bowling purveyors actually wanted bowling to take off in the state of Ohio, so they gave free bowling shirts, free bowling time to all the schools if they had a coach. So Ryan came into my office, I was the dean of students back then, and said, Mr. Wuorinen, can we start a bowling club? I was like, sure, let's do it. So that was fun.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate that as an adult, even 10 times more than I did with you.
So, well, we want to find out a lot about Ryan and Homage here. So, we've got some questions. We asked the audience, as you guys know, we asked you for some seed questions. And the first one, focusing on Homage itself. Ryan, what inspired you to start Homage, and how did you come up with the name and the brand?
So, growing up, I loved to go to thrift stores and find cool shirts that nobody had seen before. I realized that nobody else had them, and they were awesome. And so when I got to the college bookstore at Ohio U, I realized that the clothing wasn't very fun. So I kind of tapped into what I remembered from the thrift store, and got started that way.
And
the name?
Yeah, the name.
I wanted a simple word that would reflect what we were doing as a company, and I like simple words. Brands like Apple, says what it is. So yeah, that's how I got there.
And so you started in college, looking around and finding shirts and then reselling them.
Yeah, I was reselling them on eBay first. That was my first little side hustle. When I was in college, I would go to Columbus. I went to OU in Athens, so I'd drive to Columbus, hit up all the thrift stores, fill up my car, and then bring a bunch of used clothing that needed to be washed back to my dorm room. My freshman roommate thought I was nuts. He eventually told me to get the stuff out, but he put up with it for a good while. So, yeah.
And eventually you moved into your parents' basement there, doing the same thing, I believe.
Yeah. moved home after college. I was working at the Apple Store part-time and was continuing to sell on eBay. But then I kind of got tired of going to thrift stores because it's like you're going into these stores looking for vintage, and it's kind of a rare thing to be sold out, or other competitors looking for the same items. So I realized that I had to find a new product, and that's when I switched over to new stuff, but was very much inspired by the old stuff that I was selling.
So, can you give us a timeline? You graduated from college in 2005, and what's the timeline for when you were, in your parents' basement doing all this stuff and growing?
Well, it's all kind of foggy. It's been a long 18 years, a lot of trials and tribulations and stress, and I think stress kicks in. I don't know if anyone's been extremely stressed. Stress kicked in, a lot of it it's hard to remember. It's kind of weird. Going through COVID was hard. So, running a business in that environment was hard. I almost went out of business and stress. So, yeah. So
let's talk about that just a little bit. Were there times that you felt like the business could fail? Can you describe some of that? I know the answer is yes, actually.
Yes. I mean, if you're a creative like me and you're always thinking about the next big idea, which is cool, but if you don't have any money, there's not going to be a next big idea. So learning things like financial discipline, really important. If you sign a lease to open a store and it doesn't work out, you have to negotiate out of the lease because you're on the hook, you sign your name. If you take out a line of credit from the bank, you're personally guaranteeing it, so if you don't pay back, the bank could not be so nice. So, there's a lot of important learning lessons along the way that I absolutely did not know when I first started.
And so it was just a trial by fire? How did you find out about the capital investment end of things? Lots of students know now that you're, Kelsey Brothers and Kelsey family, and you've got some big names behind you. That's an evolution. That doesn't just happen overnight. Can you talk a little bit about how that all goes down?
I'd like to think that was 17 years of refining what we were doing. So we finally had something that people were excited about. It was like we finally had a body of work that that group would want to be a part of. Because it's hard when you're raising money and you don't, it's much smaller. People want to doubt you or tell you they don't think it's going to work. And so you have to sort of convince people why they should invest in you. And then as the person taking the money, as soon as you take the money, your priority should shift to how am I going to return that money to those investors with a return on investment. So many important things learned along the way.
So I know that you got hooked up with Ohio State as a licensing arrangement. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that okay to do?
Yeah, that's great. So being in Columbus, being a Buckeye fan, famous seriously, I have some economic questions I need your help with later. If he goes there, he's a math teacher, so he might. So being a huge Buckeye fan, I saw the power of the brand, and you could go to the game on Saturday, and it's like people buy a lot of Ohio State stuff. So I was able to put together a presentation to the university. It was full of vintage artifacts and old stuff. They get a lot of applications, and they're kind of similar. So I needed to do something that would really stand out. One thing I've learned is when you're making a pitch to somebody, everybody's very busy. So you have to find the way to communicate with them that's going to get their attention and have them spend time. So I think I dropped off this huge board. It was like maybe 8 feet by 8 feet, just full of OSU stuff. So you have to imagine it's like this office off of Lane Avenue, and they get mail and the occasional drop-in, and then I show up with a 8 by 8 board that didn't fit through the doorway. So that definitely got their attention.
And that's great. How much of this was your work, and how much of it is partners? I mean, no one does any of these things alone, right? So I guess I'm wondering, talk about some
Yeah.
relationships that you've been building and.
Well, I mean, as the founder at the beginning, I did everything. So as any business grows, if you guys start a company, you're going to have to learn to let go. It will be impossible to hire people and give them autonomy and responsibility. They're always meddling. And I did a lot of meddling and it probably annoyed people. So now I've learned to kind of like set guardrails or share the vision and then let them go execute, and they can always have their own point of view, but we started like collaboratively setting the goals and talking about where we're going. So that's been a change. Good question.
So I want to hit a little more on the Kelsey brothers and how does one create the brand? How do you get people interested in such things? You are a creative guy, changing clothes and all sorts of things, but how does that work? How do you?
Well, that particular opportunity was thinking about new distribution, new customer opportunities. So, when you're selling stuff on the internet, it's fundamentally about like, how are you finding new customers and how much does it cost you and how are you retaining them. And since we had just gotten the NFL license, I was thinking, well, how can I get a hold of a new audience? And New Heights was just starting. I think they were like 2 episodes in. And so I reached out to them saying, hey, you guys are from Ohio. We're from Ohio. We'd love to do merch. So it was nothing more than like just an experiment. And then, of course, we all know what happened with the podcast with Travis and Taylor Swift. And so that one was just really great timing. But I think, I've always looked for sort of new, out-of-the-box ways to do things. And I think that podcast partnership was just kind of that gut instinct.
So,
anyway.
So you have you're an online company. Talk about going to brick and mortar. You had a couple different places. One in the short north and talk a little bit about just making that decision. A lot of folks are going the other way and all that. How does that all work?
Well, there's a history of brick and mortar retail in this town, unlike any other town. And I think growing up, I saw that, thought to myself, well, maybe we'll have a store in every city. And then it seemed like a great idea, but then operationally and financially it just became more difficult. And we opened some stores in not high foot traffic neighborhoods, so made some real estate mistakes. And then we kind of realized like we're not going to be great at brick and mortar, so we started to focus on e-commerce so we could focus on one thing and try to be good at that versus in store. But in store is still fun. You just have to figure out what it is you're doing and why it's unique and why somebody would go there on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock if they can just go online, buy it, and then it's there the next day or the next 2 days. So. What about we could put Texas Instruments graphing calculators, and then in my store, and then you can tell kids that they need a calculator, and I'll give you a little kickback.
Perfect.
Can we do that? Is that violating any ethical codes? I like to joke about doing stupid stuff. You have to just bear with me on my sense of humor. Just to mess with Mr. Wuorinen, actually.
John, please. So, talk about, I want to go back to failure, just because you haven't. And as things go, I remember your parents well, Rick and Rena, and very supportive. How does the family fit in? What's the support network as things are up and down? I mean, this hasn't been just all unicorns and rainbows, obviously. All sorts of.
Oh no! I mean, when the company almost failed right around COVID, I went home. I lived at home. So, I mean, yeah, as you're going through this entrepreneurial journey, it can be very rough, and so it's good to have supportive friends and family around, especially just push yourself to the brink. There's kind of this like hero myth of like you're going to endure storms and torrential downpours to try to make it to the other side, which it's, you know, it's tough because I put myself through a lot. So on one hand, it came out the other side okay, but there's, you know, some cost to it. Like I don't know if our warehouse almost melted down, and I was working 7 days a week. This was several years ago, and then I got sick, and then I couldn't get out of bed for 3 months. So it's like, yeah, but I don't know what it was, but I'm okay now. And if I eat this Raising Cane's afterwards, I'm going to be even better. But so yeah, I mean, being a founder, I'm not looking for any recognition, but it's very difficult, and people don't talk about almost failing because who wants to fail? And everybody's afraid of failing. And you know, go ahead.
Were there times when you thought, if this next thing doesn't happen, I mean, you know, one specific time that you're going, this is going to go down. The ship's going to go down. Were there any times like that? I mean, can you describe one? Do you remember one?
Yes.
I would love to hear it.
Well, let me think how I'm going to phrase this. Go to the next question.
Okay.
I'll think
Well, I do want to flip over to Columbus Academy and your Columbus Academy experience. So that'll give you a little chance to think. The question: how did Columbus Academy prepare you for what came next? You know, teachers, coaches that are important and all that.
But yeah, I mean, it's like at every facet. Well, first and foremost, I got to know a lot of teachers while I was here, just connected with them. The teachers, the caliber of faculty here at this place, they care unlike anyone out in the world. I mean, of course, people out in the world care, but this group of faculty that I had, a couple of them are still here, but a lot of them have retired. And, you know, Bob Kerr, Joel Davis, people, incredible people. So they encouraged me to be me, and you know, in their own way. So incredible people here, and one of them even agreed to change clothes with me.
So you were a track runner, and you started a bowling club.
Yeah.
Anything else that you were involved with here?
Well, yes. So in the summers, I worked for Mr. Cullen and Mr. Hildall. I'm going to call him by the first name, but and Brent Halsey was my coworker. So we were hired to come in and erase computers and install operating systems and kind of just maintenance. And so now, like, my mind is blown because Brent Halsey is the new Sean, and yeah, he's in charge. So pretty cool.
Did you have any relationship to the dances that were held here at Columbus Academy?
Oh, I see these leading questions. Was that 8th grade? So I was an early adopter of MP3s, which may or may not have been legal, but let's just say I had a mini tower that I brought to a dance and connected to the sound system. I think it was right over there. Played MP3s and DJ'd dance. I think it was in 8th grade. And it was the homecoming
dance.
No, it was prom because I was in a tuxedo with Mr. Foltz, but I don't think anybody remembers him. No, yeah. 8th grade science teacher. So.
Could you describe what you wore to your senior prom, please, and who you went with?
So there was a competition. The duct tape company was giving away a $10,000 scholarship to the best dressed in duct tape. So me and a friend went to the thrift store, got suits, covered them in duct tape, thinking that we might have a chance. But when we saw the actual entries, they were like real clothing designers cutting outfits together, dresses, and so we didn't have a chance. So I went with my friend Vinny. When I was asking girls to go to prom with me, nobody was particularly interested in the duct tape thing. So I went to plan B, and my friend Vinny was a good tag along.
That was I think there's a picture of the yearbook of that.
And then I remember, I think you were chaperoning that night, because I remember I walked in, you grabbed my suit, and you said, "Is this duct tape?"
True fact.
Yeah.
You ready to talk failure?
Yeah.
I want to hear
Okay.
A true to life failure, almost failure story.
Well, I had a chance to noodle on it for a little bit. So, when you're raising money, it's important to ask, I mean, obviously you know who you're taking money from, but it's important to really get clear on what the plan is, because you don't want disagreement later, because that just creates conflict and tension. And if you're not in a line, everything is great when you're raising money. We're going to do X, Y, and Z, and then what happens when it doesn't? I think how that partner reacts when things don't go well is very telling. So if you're raising money from people, you want to understand the type of people you're getting into business with and see if they have hopefully a similar value system, although maybe that's not always possible, but it has been for me. So learn some lessons along the way. And then, if you're running low on money and you're not in agreement with your partner, then the company can almost fail. So, sorry, I was swinging that back to almost failure for your question.
So, moving on to entrepreneurship and advice. We have a couple of 7th graders in the audience. Can you tell them that? What you tell me? Give a shout out to them.
I received a letter from
Nick.
I got the letter like 3 days ago, and so I knew I was going to be here, so I asked if they would. So these guys are starting a t-shirt company. And
7th graders.
And we're going to be involved somehow. And you should buy their stuff. It's going to be sweet. So nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. We'll actually talk. We'll get together.
So
They didn't have to come up here. I don't want to
okay, right. So, but anyway, Nick had written, it was Nick who wrote, right? Nick wrote a letter to Ryan saying, hey, we want to start a t-shirt company. This was unrelated to the fact that he was coming today. But they were just reaching out. And so Ryan invited them to join us here.
Did you guys get out of class for this?
Nice. So
nice to meet you.
So anyway, you guys can go sit down again. But Ryan, what advice do you have for these two guys right here?
Well, I don't. That's one-on-one coaches.
Oh, so you don't want to spread that too wide.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you guys want to meet on a weekend? Is that good? Okay.
But I'm sure there are folks out there. A lot of folks are interested in business and entrepreneurship. What advice do you have for someone who is starting out or thinking about an idea, and how does all that work? I'm sure you get that question often.
Yeah, I think it's probably around curiosity, because you have to be curious to peel back the layers. Let's say you identify opportunity, you're a consumer of a product, and you're like, oh, I don't like this product, there aren't good products in a category, I want to make it better. Well, you just get really curious and start asking questions like what's out there, is there a fit, or if you're learning a new skill set, you have to be curious, figure out how to do stuff. So I think it's just all based on curiosity. People are going to tell you it's stupid, to not waste your time, just ignore them, because people told me like selling t-shirts would not work. Yeah, they were kind of right, kind of wrong, but
in what ways were they right?
Well, they were right in saying they told me not to open stores. Stores was expensive and wanted to work, but I didn't listen to them. So in some ways they were right, in some ways they were wrong. But follow your instinct, follow your curiosity. And then the other thing that I've learned is to the unexpected connections and collisions. Just the sportswear industry is really small. Like everybody knows everybody. You start getting out in the world, and you're like, oh, this person used to work there for 30 years, and they can introduce you. And so I just think as you're going into college, and there's things you can do, events to attend, people to meet, conferences to go to. That's the stuff that just puts you out in the world and creates new, unexpected connections.
What do you think of a 40-hour work week?
I'll get back to you. I mean, it's like, so we're in office Tuesdays and Wednesdays. first we said we're going to do 3 days a week, and people didn't want to come in 3, so we said let's do 2. So now we're doing 2. So
I actually was referring to you yourself.
oh, me personally?
Yeah, you yourself.
Well, there's
a 40-hour work week.
that's impossible, but I mean, it's a good question because like I'm like waking up Saturday morning and like something's off on the website and I'm like slacking somebody saying, hey, can we fix this? And they're like just trying to have breakfast with their kids. So there's like my internal sort of how I work, and then there's everybody else. And over the years, I've had to sort of learn to not bother people in the evening or on the weekend. So there is something to what you're saying. But for me personally, it's, I mean, I'm plugged in all the time.
That's actually where I was going.
Yeah.
I was guessing that a successful entrepreneur doesn't have a 40-hour work.
No. I mean, you want to get there because it's like that. You want to. I think where you're going to is like you want to make time for stuff. I think like some early mistakes. I just went heads down. All I was doing was homage all the time. I just didn't know what was going on in the world, and you feel disconnected because you're so heads down, focused on one thing maniacally. And I think coming up prepared is important. Getting into some deep stuff here.
Well, thinking of
40-hour work.
Well, there are lots of folks who assume that success is just going to happen, does success just happen?
No, it's a very windy road. I feel like some of you are going to start businesses and be wildly successful out of the gate. Like it's all dialed and they're all really smart. And the benefit of great education. So my experience is very unique to me. So I don't want to like scare anybody away from starting a business because I'm talking about failure. I'm talking about like getting sick. So everyone's going to have a unique experience. Just want to make that clear.
Thinking about, you mentioned the world. You're in the t-shirt business. I would assume that some of your garbs come from maybe China or the East, and there's been a lot of tariff news recently. Can you comment on what that looks like? Thinking of current events.
Yeah, looks like a lot of uncertainty. Prices may be going up. Are we going to raise prices? Are we not? One thing that I'm seeing that's pretty cool is suppliers and businesses that sell to companies it's not just the companies that are going to share the brunt. So our suppliers basically agreeing to make less money because they want to meet us halfway. So there's a lot of really interesting just partnership dynamics that I see happening in the world, which is kind of encouraging. Like your partners are there for you and they want to help you navigate through it. So yeah, it's hard. I mean, stuff's changing every week, so I'm like trying to follow, but I also know that like it could be totally different in 3 weeks. So try to let our sourcing and finance people handle that.
Okay, so you've got people who are looking and maybe saying we should consider domestic production or whatever.
We print our shirts here. Shirts are made in China. We print everything here, so I mean that's an interesting advantage from a speed perspective. So everybody's adapting and scrambling in real time. It's been nothing but a scramble. So it makes me not want to be in the t-shirt business.
Do you know what's next for Homage? Do you have a thought about the next big thing?
Yeah, maybe buy a bowling alley. You can come work there.
I'm in. Yeah.
Well, I'm still pretty engrossed in this because on one hand the tariffs are complex and it's a crazy world, but I also found myself at Radio Row, the Super Bowl, talking to Dan Marino, or like running into Jason Kelsey at events. So it's like kind of wild because we're in this sports world with all these people that I looked up to as a kid. So, you know, we did this jacket with Jerry Rice from the 49ers, receiver, and he wrote on my LinkedIn wall saying I'd love the jacket, thinking it was his admin. Maybe it was him. I'd like to think that Jerry Rice wrote on my wall. So, you know, it's kind of navigating this industry. Industry is very, sports licensing is very competitive. There's a lot of consolidation in the industry. I don't know if anyone follows brands or who cares, but New Era makes hats, just bought 47 brands. So that's going to, you know, they'll probably go public and be a big company. And so I'm just like this mid-sized company just sitting there wondering what's going to happen to me. So it's hard because in my world, you have licensing agreements and you're getting permission from Disney and the NFL to do stuff. And what happens if they don't renew? You know, what happens if you lose a license? And so it's a particular complexity when you're paying royalties. But on the blank side, on the brand side, we can do some more stuff and not pay royalty and build the brand. So that's kind of where I'm headed, if that makes any sense.
Well,
like I want to sell everyday comfortable T-shirts to you. So like you might find out about me because you're buying like a Cleveland Browns team. You're like, oh, this is a cool brand. Tell me more. And maybe you become a part of the story, and maybe you check out our website. So we've connected with you first through your fandom. The hope is that then you're an Homage customer, and then we spy on you and find out that you have kids, and we're kidding. We're not spying on anybody. But you know, in theory, you know, we acquire you as a customer, and you'd have family, and you'd spend more.
The other piece that it was within the last year or so, you helped a bar down on High Street, I think. You kind of outfit the bar. Can you tell the folks about that? And what sort of, and how did all that happen? It's an interesting partnership. It's outside of the T-shirt realm.
Yeah, so paying homage to me is a feeling. It expresses itself currently through apparel that you buy, but celebrating something you love is a feeling. And so I've always been talking about homage as something more than just an apparel company. Now, actually figuring that out is a lot harder because it turns out I'm running a clothing company, and so I can dream about storytelling and content, but I have to execute. So the bar opportunity was with a hotel partner. It was a licensing deal. So basically, I could create the homage bar experience that they would run it. So I don't know anything about running a bar. I would probably fail at that. It's like liquor license, being open till 2 a.m. The whole operating system and playbook that I'm not good at. So that was a good way to open up something experimental and learn from it and have a partner help me. So, you know, you guys all have phones and you're on TikTok, and so, you know, ask myself what kinds of stories could homage put out in the world that customers would consume digitally. And so that's where you kind of go, like, how could homage move more towards content and storytelling as a way to not only create brand engagement, but build authenticity and loyalty. So I think that's been the hard part, is like homage is a labor of love, and it can be so many things. Like I know it can be more than just clothing. It's just like, can I actually get there?
What's the name of the bar?
Homage Bar.
And where is it?
Well, nobody here can go in there.
Well, you can go in. They could go in. They just couldn't. If you were here,
well, they're going to order mozzarella sticks. They can
all sorts of things. They Coke, Pepsi. I don't know if it's Coke or Pepsi, but
yeah.
I'm not encouraging you to go to a bar.
But you don't even serve soda here anymore, right? There's
no soda yet. Back in your day, we did.
Yeah, food's amazing here. Just come over here for lunch every day.
So where is it? Where is the bar? In case they want to stop by.
It's inside the Graduate Hotel on High Street in Short Run.
Yeah.
So that was kind of fun. I got to decorate the bar with posters and stuff, and I realized that I think I like creating spaces. It's a lot more fun. Without the complexity of like, do you have inventory and stock of men's, women's, and kids' clothing. It's spaces can be fun. So it could be another side business.
All right. One last question here. What did Academy do best to prepare you for what came later? One last plug.
So somebody asked me this, and I was trying to think about it, and it hit me like at every stage, 5th grade when I started through high school, like I'm in history class or English class, and I'm reading stuff, and then I'm writing stuff, and I'm honing in the writing, I'm honing what I'm saying and how I'm saying it. And I think just developing that skill was really important. Because you're preparing a pitch deck to an investor, you're like, okay, what am I saying? How am I saying it? Or I'm trying to hire somebody to join, to leave a job and join Alumni. It's like, what am I saying? How am I saying it? So I think there's a lot of fine tuning of that over the years. Messaging, yeah. I think that happened here.
Well, Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate it.